Okay, so the protocol is very simple. There's a mic. It's on. You are all invited to come up and pose questions. And if you do have a question that you want to pose directly to one or more folks up here, that's fine. But you can also address an entire group. Folks running for council, for mayor, for the directorship. You can even ask questions of me if you want, but I'm here by acclamation too. Okay, any questions? And if not, of course, that's great. We can all go home almost right away. No need to raise hands or anything. You just walk up and use the mic. Scary thought that indeed. All friends and neighbors here, nothing to be afraid of. Excellent, okay.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Art Mason, and I know a lot of people here, a lot of people in Kaslo. A little bit nervous getting up here. I'm used to talking to people one-on-one or one-on-two. But anyway, listening to you all share your thoughts, on the forest industry, on the mining industry and stuff. And I think it's great, to have these ideas. But I just wondered, like the sawmill, if we had one here, what you would like to have in your backyard, where would you put it? Or mining industry, with a smelter, where would you put that? Maybe in the bay? The reason I'm asking these questions is I lived at Cooper Creek, and Meadow Creek Cedar moved from Meadow Creek to Cooper Creek. And I worked for them. I fell for them, I ran skidders for them, I worked for them right from the very beginning. And you go up there now and you have a look at the neighborhood. It's not very nice.
Sorry to interrupt. I think I get the drift of what you're saying. So what's your specific question? Okay,
my specific question now is we talk about tourism. Now this is an issue that I've discussed with a lot of people running for council. It's nice to have tourism. It's nice to have all these people coming here. They bring money into the area. This year,
sorry, but we just need a question.
Okay, this year there's
a question.
Okay, a question.
Or you'll have to sit down.
Okay, how do the councilors, people running for mayor, feel about the motorcycles that are coming to this area with their back was taken out in the straight pipes? They're disrupting so many people's lives in this area. And what do they feel should be done about it? And the businesses, because people I've talked to are fed up.
Okay, well, thanks. That's a fair question. I'll start down here. Would anyone like to address the issue of allowing motorcycles? Jim Holland. Here's the mic right here. Could you just pass that down? And please try to be brief in your comment.
The Motor Vehicle Act is very clear if you read it. Isn't it right, Sean? Straight pipes, unmuffled straight pipes on internal combustion engines are illegal. So that's an enforcement issue.
He doesn't have time to look after stuff like that. He's my bodyguard.
I'm out of here, thanks.
We talked earlier at the senior center there, and after that I did a bit of research on the internet, and what I found is the laws are a little different in Alberta. They have some variants on that, and it seems to be a lot of the motorcycles coming through are Albertans, are they not?
So put a song like.
Yeah. So I don't know how to address that. I just want to point that out, whether that's check stops or all that. But then as a community, we have to decide, do these people bring enough economy in to,
Okay, we have one other person up here, Pat Mackle, would like to say something, and then we'll take the next question.
That's a really good question. I didn't hear you too well because my ears were kind of shot from riding a motorcycle. But, they have cracked down on motorcycles, and I don't like loud motorcycles myself. And I would say now that there's not as many as there was before. And it's an industry, it's tourism, and a lot of those people that ride motorcycles are fairly well off. They're wealthy, they bring money to town. They may not bring a lot per person, but every little bit counts. And I support you in that bikes should be quieter, and I think there's a change underway, because already we're seeing a lot more enduro type bikes where the guys are traveling from Trout Lake and coming over Great Creek and stuff like that. So they've been getting busted for loud motorcycles and speeding, and so they're already changing to the dual sport type. So there's changes underway.
Okay, thanks for the question. Thank you for those answers. Sir, you got a question? Or, I'm sorry, Dawn. Yeah. The hot seat.
So, hi everybody. Everybody remembers who I am, I think. This is a question I'm seeking clarification from the current council. A review of best practice suggests that the mayor is the best person to represent village council at the regional district table to leverage networking opportunities. I have two questions. What was the rationale for removing our mayor from his seat at the regional district table? And the second question is, what was the rationale for ignoring the greater than 10% petition submitted by John Addison to rescind council's motion and reinstate our mayor to his rightful spot at the regional district table?
Okay, before we go to answers, just a point of legal clarification. I don't know that this is one of those matters. I really don't, but it's a good opportunity to say this out loud. For those folks sitting up here who are currently on council, any discussions they've had in camera, they can't share it with the public.
This is a public
I'm just saying,
conversation.
I didn't say that was one of these issues, Don, but it's an opportunity for me just to clarify that. Okay, so you heard the question. Who would like to respond? I see Jim's hand go up.
So this has been an issue that was batted around quite a bit in the municipality. I was kind of at the center of it because I ended up being appointed to the regional district. The directorship at the regional district is elected by council, and council can send anyone they want to send. Of the 9 municipalities that have representation at the regional district, 4 of them are represented by councilors, not mayors. A lot of times what happens is the mayor is too busy to pick up the role at the regional district, because in reality the work at the regional district is probably larger, or at least equal to the mayor's position, and certainly larger than what a councilor does. I was appointed in the second year of the current term to the regional district. I did not ask for that position. I was asked if I would serve in that position. And the reason that I was asked to do that, the reasons that were discussed by the councils to do that at the time, we agreed that there was no purpose or reason or good that would come out of slagging the mayor or pointing out any deficiencies that were perceived by council at that time around his performance, that didn't serve anything. It's election time now. I guess if everybody really wants to know, it's time to know. The mayor's attendance record at the regional district meetings was the worst of all the directors at the regional district. The mayor's attendance to council meetings here in council, your own council, were the worst of anybody on council. He was missing a lot of meetings. I had a discussion with the mayor about that. I said, Greg, it seems like you're really busy, because he was telling council that he was missing all the meetings because he had to do regional district business, and he's telling the regional district that he missed a lot of meetings because he had to be at council business. This feedback was coming back to us from directors at the regional district that they felt that were underrepresented. And the councilors decided to act on that. I didn't know, I don't know what happened during the 3 years previous I wasn't on council, but for the first year that I was at council, because I had served 3 years as a rural director, I knew what was required for the job. I knew it was important. Reporting was severely lacking. The reports we got were agendas with little notes scribbled in the margins left in the mayor's box in the office, and we were told if we asked for feedback on what was going on that his report was in the box. I went a couple times, I tried to read what was going on. The notes were pretty low. So when your current council had to weigh what the performance was that they were dealing with, and they dealt with it for 4 years, versus what they knew, because the 2 councilors that decided that had seen my performance in the previous term for 3 years. Of the 5 years that I served regional district Central Cootie, I have a perfect attendance record. I've never missed a meeting. Every meeting I go to is reported on. Right now, I can give you the reports of everything that's happened in the last 2 years in about 5 minutes. If you want a report from the 3 years of the previous term, give me a day. They're all written, they're all matter of public record. And I report distinctly so. It wasn't necessarily, it was the difference in comparison of what could be best serve the community. And two of the councilors on council had that very clearly that they could see. They could see what the performance was here, they could see what the performance was here, and they decided in the interest of the village of Kaslo, they wanted good representation at the regional district, so they did that. My role in the previous 3 years, I did a really good job. I worked really hard. I got myself totally educated around what's going on in the International Drug Commission Board of Control for Coogee Lake. I saved the taxpayers of Kaslo a couple $100,000 over time because I lobbied so hard down there. Finally, after 2 years, got the regional district to acknowledge that we are an impacted community from the BC Hydro Dam operations, and that's where the community development fund came from. That started out as $20,000. I insisted that it be indexed to the indexes of increases that were coming. It's up to $30,000.
And Jim, I think you tackled.
So I'm going to tell you, there was very much of a desire by the council of the day not to slag the mayor and point this stuff out because we didn't think that was productive. So we did it, but now I have.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, since this was also directed at me, I will keep it brief. In the first year of the last term, there was a motion put forward at that time to not support the mayor for that position, and I went with the mayor, and he made an impassioned plea that he would do a good job because for some of the reasons that Councillor Holland had outlined with reporting, and basically he was given warning at that point by the remaining councillors that we were unhappy with the level of reporting and of keeping his council informed. So we gave him a year, and it came up again the next year, and the performance did not improve. And as far as to why we did not respond to the petition, that is a council decision. If we had to come for every little decision that is, that's not an appointment that the mayor makes. He makes appointments to all the other committees, standing and select committees, but not that. So, like I said, we had given the mayor warning of what we wanted as a council, and we just weren't getting it after a year. So, we felt we had no choice. We went with the person that had a track record of, presenting us with agendas, forwarding them. What do you want me to do for you at the regional district table at this next meeting? And we do get reports often the same night as the meeting, and as emails, and then he'll give a verbal one as well in case we didn't get the email. So that's it in brief.
Okay, Greg?
These comments, I think, bear consideration, and I do not agree that my attendance record was that bad in the regional district, quite frankly. I think council has a responsibility to be informed, and I provided that opportunity for them to be informed. There are very few issues in a regional district meeting where Kaslo is the topic of discussion. Any time that Kaslo had a situation at the regional district that required input, I gave that input. So I think, I just thought that this is in the past, it's gone, but my own personal view is the mayor of the elected in the community, unless they don't have the time. The issue of performance, I'll leave that to the rest of the group to make a determination. But I regarded my performance as reasonable, given the fact that the mayor has a lot of things to do, and that the information was available for councillors. They never phoned me and asked for information. I did take the notes, place it where they may not have liked my written notes, but they were there. And had they wanted to look at them and give me a call and say, Greg, what about this, what about that, I would have done that. So let's end this part of the discussion.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Don. Sir?
Stan Baker, I have a question for all the candidates. What is your views on the future of the airport. Seems to be really hot material.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Why don't we start down here and let's let first crack at anyone who would like to answer this question who hasn't spoken yet. Donnie, anything to say on this one?
Well, I've been on the record as being a fan of that airport for quite some time. It was actually Councillor Leithwood and myself that had to fight quite strongly to get the power brought up there to the hangar area where it is. And we did that, and that happened. And the airport seems to me like a pretty good resource that we should be developing. And I'm not sure where we're at now with it being annexed by the village. Someone from the village would know more than I about whose hands the airport is in at this time. But I think it would be, it is and could be a great asset for Kaslo and Area D.
Out of all the conversations I've had in the last 2 weeks, I have no idea where you went, Stan. I'm trying to look at you while I speak to you. Thank you. The airport is really important to the majority of people I've spoken to. Through the Sustainable Economic Development Committee that I've been on for 3 years with council, it has also been one of the top issues there that we've wanted to look at developing. The barrier that seems really obvious to me is this kind of ad hoc approach to it. This is an airport. We need it to be really clear how it needs to operate. We need to be really clear about the cost of operating, and we need that to be clearly researched, whereas the approach has been not as professional and clear as we need it to be so that taxpayers' monies are being spent adequately and efficiently. So I think it's a great idea. I think we need to move forward with it. But the research and the feasibility on how to do it right needs to be done. And there's been part of it done, and one of the old engineers that first started it was one of the people I spoke to last week. And he was very excited to have started it, but has lost hope in that we don't have a functioning council that is focusing on it enough to make it a professional place. And I think that's where we need to focus.
Yeah, I have a bit of a history. I tried to develop the airport there when I was on council, but I didn't get too far. What I wanted to do was get the BC Forest Service in there with the firefighters in the summertime to be an anchor tenant and base themselves out of Kaslo. So I think that potential is still there. The airport is never going to be big unless you get something like somebody that restores airplanes and puts hangars up there and restores airplanes out of it. Then it becomes a destination. People will fly there to meet people that restore airplanes, but I don't think that's going to be a likely situation. So, because I mean that works with vintage cars and motorcycles and stuff. You get people make a destination of these places when there's somebody that's got a key interest in it. It is good for a heli-skiing base, and somebody mentioned about plowing it in the winter. And I have to say that I don't think plowing is economically feasible because it's a lot of wet plows of snow. It's a lot of work to keep it up to some standards. So I don't think we'll get it open for winter flight, emergency flights, because they would just get a helicopter in. But it's good for a heli-skiing base, and if there's any other development, it's good. But I think it's going to be slow.
I think about 10 years ago, when Mayor Rob Mattis was in town, there were a lot of discussions about the airport. I think why the airport has such value is the lands adjacent to the actual airport are significant. There are several acres there of developable land on well-drained soil. There's a water resource there. Getting electricity there has been looked at, and it's not impossible. I have studied airports regionally. There are people who would love to fly into our airport, but they have no way to get downtown, thanks to the owner of the Kaslo Hotel. There's a sign there, and if you land there and see that sign, he'll actually come and get you. But airports are growing in importance, and I was at a meeting with the Ministry of Transportation last week, where one of the main topics discussed was the development of rural airports. Cusp, Kaslo, Creston, Nelson. We're all looking and asking the Ministry of Transportation to get involved in this process because the capital costs to to maintain these, or to reconfigure these airports is fairly high. And I'm hopeful that in the not too distant future, the government will recognize the role that rural airports play in the economy of our area.
I think we've got two separate issues. One is the actual use of the airport as an airport and the use of the adjacent lands for commercial or industrial use. I have no problem at all with the use of the lands for industrial use. And the operation of the airport as it currently exists as a recreational base at this point, because there really hasn't been a viable business plan brought forward as to why that would work for us. Why would the citizens of Kaslo, because even though it was, and well, in the regional district puts no money into those lands. They were getting the tax revenue from the hangar owners. The village of Kaslo was getting the lease rates. So if there can be a plan brought forward that isn't going to cost the village taxpayers a lot, you've got to consider that. The airport is a great idea, and it does bring tourists, and it's wonderful that Mr. Eklund can bring people down from the airport. But at what cost to the taxpayers? When we've got sewer and water and other things that are of greater benefit to the greater community of Kaslo, I think that's where, unfortunately, that's where we're seen as, wanting to stagnate Kaslo. I don't think that's true. We need to move forward on other things that are of greater benefit to the citizenry of Kaslo. And, I'm afraid that's my feeling.
Okay, any of you candidates for council with a brief comment? Okay, let's start at this end and work down, or no? Start with the mic.
The straw poll that the village of Kaslo conducted sometime a few months ago showed that 70% of community members are in favor of developing the airport. So the question is, how much we want to develop it? Because we have an airport, it exists. And we need to attract footloose entrepreneurs, or what we call telecommuters. These are people who uses broadband internet and work at home, but they have to be somewhere else fast enough. So these people, for example, needs to go to Paris. And these people are wealthy. They can afford to pay for to travel by plane from Kaslo to Castlegar. So my understanding is the present condition of our airport is sufficient enough to attract tourists who would like to go backcountry, cross-country skiing, heli skiing, cat skiing. Our community has about 7 businesses that caters to these winter tourists, like heli skiing, cat skiing. If they can attract 10 people a day to do these sports, and these people are wealthy, and they pay $500 and they spend $500 locally. The multiplier effect of that $500 is 50%, almost 50% of $500, which means that $250 per person goes back to our community and spend it in our community for for employing other people, for buying food in restaurants. That's the multiplier effect. And if that 10 persons per day means $5,000 a day, these businesses can afford to pay for plowing our airport during the winter season. Pat Maka mentioned about plowing, that is not economically feasible, but we don't need to plow our airport every day in the winter. If the snow is only 2 inches high, it will melt. So plowing depends on how much snow we receive during winter. So if it is unfeasible to plow it, then don't plow it. But
Ramela, let's try and wrap. Okay, it's taking a long time.
so sorry. Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Just any final.
So it's economically feasible.
Thank you.
I love Kaslo International. I walk my dogs on the runway all the time. I know that a friend grinds his remote planes up there. But I think if in fact there's true potential to increase the tax base to the village, I would say the cost versus the benefit would have to be carefully weighed, because the Kaslo has other infrastructure issues that must be maintained. And I would see, first of all, maybe it'd be a good idea to start in small steps, developing the lands first. I saw this thing, Confucius said, a man can remove a mountain, but he does it small stones at a time.
I am definitely in support of our airport. I think we're very, very fortunate, a community our size, to have such a facility. It's just incredible, because how many small rural communities have the bragging rights to an airport like that? The other piece that we're not thinking about too much is for medical evacuation and also for firefighting. And just recently, one of our dear neighbors had to be evacuated by helicopter to Kelowna. And thank goodness we have a beautiful airport where we can actually drive up and do the transfer from our ambulance into these helicopters. So I think it's something that we don't want to lose it. I'd like to see it expanded. I'd like to see more development at our airport. I think it's an amazing gem for us to have in our community.
Well, nobody up here is going to disagree with the airport not being a valuable asset and that it needs to be developed. The question is how and for what purpose. So right now, I'm a little concerned about the annexation of the airport lands into the municipality, because on your taxpayers, you're going to have a hit for that. There's maybe the cost could be relatively small. They could go up a lot if around issues that are not yet determined on the maintenance of the road from the hangars to the dump. There's a whole bunch of discussions going on about that. Where I'm looking at this is how to develop it and what kind of tax base you want to have to develop it. If you annex that land now, when there's no tax gain at all, very little, I think I've published them, I think it's about $1,800 a year or something. And by the way, the regional district's never been asked to contribute, and I'm pretty damn sure they would, even just the amount of tax we're paying. I think they would throw in there probably even better. So we have a valuable partner in developing that asset with the regional district and Area D. So we annex that land, we put it in the village of Kaslo, we call it the Kaslo Municipal Airport, and you guys take care of it as the taxpayers of Kaslo. Or you leave it up there in Area D, and you call it the Kaslo Regional Airport, and the tax base then is suddenly expanded from Kaslo out over Area D. To me, it makes a lot more sense not to bring this into the village of Kaslo and have that be exclusively a burden on the ratepayers of Kaslo, when really that airport is for the region, Area D and the region. It's not just for Kaslo. So that would be my point. The worries about the taxation that happens up there, if there's development, if 10 years from now, you got factories and whatever, you name it, big giant tax base up there. Kaslo's worried about losing that revenue. Guess what? Kaslo owns the property. You can annex it like that. Well, it takes, there's all the paperwork stuff, which basically has been accomplished now. So at some future point, if you partner with the regional district, you get good substantial development to have up there. You've got the resources. The regional district down there has professional planners and developers that can help you plan that airport, turn it into a viable regional airport. Then the village can annex it and reap the rewards of the tax benefit. But I think at the front end, you want to have a partner.
Hello. Sounds like there's a lot of varying opinions up here. And to be honest, I'm not going to tell people I know something when I don't. I have to get up to speed on this, and I will if I'm elected. But I hear a lot of different opinions up here, and I don't know what to make of it. I thought there was going to be industrial development up there. I had no idea someone wanted to turn that into a full-blown airport, and you will have to plow it all winter long because you can't signal planes with a smoke fire saying, hey, safe to land. Right? And we all remember that fairly large plane when a fellow from California decided he thought he could land, and his props were bananas, right? And he was stuck up there in the winter. So I'm not in favor of spending that money if it means there's going to be cuts to the municipal infrastructure. I can say that right off, even without any more research. Like, leave it as it is. And in the winter, it's closed. Choppers can get in. There's not a problem for Meadowback. They don't care about snow. I know from doing lots of chopper work. So I need to do more research, but that's my gut feeling right away.
So when asked, or in my own personal life, about buying something, is it an asset or is it a liability? In my mind, assets make money. Liabilities do not. Does this dump truck make money? Does this Scouts Hall make? Does it provide that social good? But really, this whole municipal structure, in my mind, is a corporation. If this airport shows, and we can see models like Crawford Bay, where they're flying in airplanes and people are staying, golfing, eating, and are they? My question is, I'm kind of like you. I don't know the details, so I can't make a decision. But I would want to look at places like Crawford Bay, places like Revelstoke that started flying people into their little mini airport to bring in places, looking at other models and finding out all of the details. And most importantly, does this make money? If it makes money, then yes, probably a good idea. But if it doesn't, then no. I like airports. My grandpa had a plane. I love flying. I love my friends with gliders. I think it's a wonderful thing. But really what it's going to come down to in my mind is it going to make money and serve our community in a good way so that we can pay for snow plowing, and it's worth it to go ahead and do that. So just looking at it in my business mind, does it make sense, over cool factor, does it make sense financially? If I was a counselor, I would have to look at that decision, and I would, and just in my nature, I would phone Revelstoke, I would phone Crawford Bay, I would phone Cusp, I would phone all of these people and say, what's your profit loss statement on this thing? Because if it's going to cost taxpayers, then people can drive here. They'll get here somehow or another. But I do like the idea of them coming, keeping them here. They have to stay in our hotels. They have to shop here. They have to use our transportation. Thank you.
I just wanted to make it clear too that it's actually not an airport. It's an aerodrome. It's not certified. There's no commercial flights can come in and out of it at present. So calling it an airport isn't right. I think that's all I want to say on it, actually. Thank you.
Okay, this is a subject that I took on when I first got on council, and it's been one of my priorities from the get-go. And I want to clear up a couple of fallacies right off the bat. First of all, there is a road use agreement in place covering the road from the airport hangars to the transfer station with the regional district. That's not costing Kaslo anything. So that's been dealt with. Councillor Hewitt's correct in saying that there are two separate issues at play here. One is, how do you develop the industrial lands adjacent to the airport, and what do you want to see done with the airport itself? The airport is in need of an upgrade. It needs certain services. It needs an AWAS system. It needs security cameras. It needs fencing. And so, because we've had issues of vandalism on those planes. The bottom line is all this is there's a document in front of council right now waiting for council's approval to put a group of pilots in charge of the operation of the airport. This is the correct way to proceed. Put pilots in charge of running the airport. You put hockey players in charge of the arena. You put golfers in charge of the golf club. Why not put pilots in charge of the airport? In terms of tax implications, it's always been my position that the airport should be tax neutral. It should not cost the taxpayers of this community any money. There's ways of generating revenues up there that do not include adding to your tax bill. We just got to be a little bit creative. But nobody's looking for regular scheduled flights in and out of Kaslo. Winter maintenance, I think, is almost an impossibility. Given the cloud conditions we have here and the cost of removing the snow from the runway, there would have to be a 1,000-fold increase in traffic to even begin to justify that. So what you see in the wintertime up there is what you're going to get for the foreseeable future. I think it's a valuable asset. I think we need to nurture this group to get them to come forward and do the necessary volunteer work to make it a more user-friendly facility. But bearing in mind, it's not going to cost the taxpayers any money. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to know that I support the Kaslo Airport, always have. I've been involved in the development of a strategic plan that has gone to council, and I work with a group that is trying to work on a business plan for the airport. And the priority of this group that is getting together is to make sure that there will not be any tax implications on Kaslo. And this is a group that wants to run this airport for the village on a not relying on any taxes from the village. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much for all those answers. Is there another question out there? Tim? And then, is that you back there? I have my glasses on. Okay, you're next.
My name is Tim Ryan. I'm on the board of Kaslo Infranet, and I've been deeply involved in the broadband project here in Kaslo. And I want to state for the record that we're all very, very heartened to see that all of our municipal councilors are strongly on board with building broadband in Kaslo. To that end, though, we need to figure out how we're actually going to generate the cash to actually get it done. And we've looked at issues around how we ditch and put fiber in the ground. The challenge we have here is that this village has wrestled with trying to put sewers in the ground as far back as I can remember. I've been here a decade or so. And as I understand that this has been fought over for decades prior to my arrival. So I want to propose that the council going forward should be looking at wrapping up broadband deployment in Kaslo along with finally taking action on the liquid waste plan. And here's the rationale. If you get around to sitting down and actually digging up the money to put proper sewers in this town, and this is a project that should take place, you get a broadband burial as a gimme thrown in on the project. Having spent most of this last year ditching ourselves to try and put in at least 2 running examples of broadband, one on Water Street in downtown Business Core, and the other one, a test venture up in Kaslo Heights. Fully 50% of the cost of doing so has been absorbed by our minimal efforts at ditching the streets to do so. There is a bylaw that was in place that was part of the original beginnings of broadband in Kaslo, where if you dig the streets up, you are committed to putting fiber in along with it.
Tim, what's your question?
Yes, the question is this. Will you as a council going forward commit to building out a sewer system and building out broadband deployment at the same time.
Okay, thanks. Let's start down this end. And please, that, in the interest of humanity, I know you all have a lot on your minds and a lot to say, and I know this is a great opportunity to share your ideas with the electorate, but really try hard to be succinct and brief and say your core stuff and then pass the mic, if you would, please. Thanks.
Okay.
I hate doing this.
This will be quick and easy. I certainly support the broadband. I've always indicated that in previous questions. But I also support the, if you're going to be digging the sewer system, then you lay the cable at the same time. Simple as that.
Ditto.
Yeah, same. I support what you're doing completely. I think it's a great idea. Always impressed to see you guys working late into the night up there, Castle Heights.
If it makes sense, do it.
I'm in favor, I just don't know what the plans are to keep moving sewer ahead, I'll have to find out, but I'm in favor of it happening when it happens.
Can't go wrong doing 2 jobs at one time. I wouldn't want to link them though.
I'm in support.
I remember when they ran the gas line to Balfour, they were doing the bike riding trail, then they had to pull it up again to do the gas line. I think that's a good idea, 2 for 1, but the point really is, of course, we do it, but is it necessary to increase the sewer system? That's the question.
I agree, because the current sewer treatment plant is operating just 50% of its capacity. If we expand the sewer system, it will reduce the fees that the businesses pay to the village.
What's wrong with twinning? No, what's wrong? I'm pointing at Councillor Holland, but what's wrong with twinning sewers and internet? An internet-based flushing system.
Can get held up by sewers.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, all right, let's keep going down here. I thought you had some technological concern, like someone hacking into your toilet or something. Just wanted to be clear.
I also support that. As you saw, one of my aims is to complete the liquid waste management plan, both phases 2 and 3, and hopefully start a street-by-street expansion of the plan if we can get things worked out, and definitely doing both things at once. But I can see what Councillor Holland is saying, because the last time we did it, it was a long, protracted process to get the sewer in, and I can see where there could be concern for Castle Infonet getting delayed.
Get her done.
And look at the costs.
Area D isn't getting any new broadband at this point, so I don't think we have much to say about it.
Well, there's the possibility of Area D actually getting hooked up, but that's a discussion that Tim and I actually had last night for another occasion. Well, later. Yeah.
No.
Okay, any other questions? Please, come on up. And then there was a question back here, and then Annie, so you're second up after. Fire away.
Hi. You caught my attention when you used the word political will.
Speak into the mic.
Okay, I'm very interested in, the reason I'm up here is I'm trying to decide who I'm going to vote for, to try to get an understanding of what's in your minds. Kelly, you used the word political will. What I'm looking for to hear tonight, I'm trying to phrase come up with a question as briefly as possible, but I want to hear
if there are any of you who actually have the political will and the creativity and the will to reduce my property taxes. Okay, my property value, my residential property value decreased this last year, but my taxes rose, and the net effect of that was a 25% increase out of my pocket. There doesn't seem, and I've been here 10 years, and I think on my commercial property, the jump in taxes that I have paid, and I'm still, you know, there doesn't seem to be an end to the increases. And I'm looking to hear from some very specific, very creative, very committed responses from you, to find out if you're actually going to do something. Not tell me what I'm gaining, but what you're going to do to relieve my tax burden, because I think there's many of us who either have to go to work elsewhere or work 2 or 3 jobs just to maintain some semblance of life in this town. So.
Okay, thanks, Linda. So I know that's a complex and tough question, but for those of you who decide to give an answer, please try and be as succinct as you can. And that's kind of a universal question. Linda, you live in Kaslo, right? All right, yeah. Okay, so let's limit, RDCK candidates, let's limit our responses to the mayoral and council candidates on this one.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't think taxes will go down, but I think you can control your spending. And but if we're looking at expansion of water or sewer, broadband, and we're asking the taxpayers to pay for it, and the taxes are going to go up, the only way to get around that is to have user fees that will reduce the costs of the capital investment and the operation of it. But I'm not going to say I'm going to reduce taxes. Like I said, try to hold the line on taxes. And as always, I use those 2 words, due diligence. I'll look at whatever I'm doing with a critical eye.
I'm going to throw this idea out, and I tried in my first term to get the council of the day to do an appraisal of the vacant residential and industrial land we have in Kaslo. Motion failed. Kaslo has at least 3 beautiful pieces of property that are owned by the village that cost the village nothing. It was part of the original deal. I think if we were to market those lands based on public input as to how those areas would be developed, we could probably raise significant dollars to offset the one big tax increase that occurred this year, the fire hall. So my view, and what I would do if I'm reelected, I would try to encourage council to think about getting a plan together for these village lands, market these lands, sell these lands, and create a reserve fund so every year when the tax assessment comes in for the fire hall, we would send the check from a reserve fund to the regional district. Now, this is a concept. I haven't talked to the regional district about it. We're talking bookkeepers and lawyers and institutional barriers. But the concept is there. We're sitting on an unbelievable resource with our lands that have been there for as long as I've been involved in politics here, and we've done nothing.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
I'm going to ask you a question first, Linda. If you wouldn't mind telling me what area of town you live in?
I live just above the marina, and I own property also on Front Street.
Okay. There is an issue with flowing from the new OCP. I believe you're in the area that has been deemed as waterfront commercial.
No, we're not on.
You're not on that, not in that waterfront commercial area? Okay.
No, we're not.
All right. So I thought that was.
We were, but we're not.
No, you don't wish you were.
Well, my taxes.
Your taxes would be worse, because there was, when the planning document was written, with commercial, you would be paying the same commercial rate as you are for your downtown business. And for my part, as chair of the budget committee for the last 6 years, over the last 3 years at least, I have worked to get council to decrease the multiplier, which is residential taxes are considered one, and business taxes at this point are 2.45 times what the residential tax rate is. And so in each of the last 3 years, that multiplier has been decreased by at least 1 point. So we've been taking baby steps at doing that, and I would hope that we would continue to try and, decrease the amount of the business taxes.
My taxes aren't decreasing anywhere, so I don't know what baby steps you've taken, but I'm going one way, and you're talking about going another. I'm not seeing the actual effect of it. And I guess that's what I want to see is a plan to actually realize something concrete.
Well, we're talking what's considered some places a nasty word, which is, the new fire hall. Because the village collects tax for others as well. And a big part of that is the new fire hall, where there's borrowing for that. And that is taxed on the regional district end of things. Sort of pass
Okay, we're going down this way, Renaud.
I think the first thing to do is to reform the village permissive tax exemptions. The proposed permissive tax exemption for 2015 to 2016 by the village of Kaslo is totaling about $42,700. And these are lands and properties that are owned by NGOs that are tax exempt. If you compare that with City of Nelson, it's the total tax exemption for NGOs that own their properties is only $32,700. So why we, a smaller community, have a greater permissive tax exemption compared to City of Nelson? I called the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Nelson and I asked them if they given tax exemption to all NGOs that own property in the City of Nelson. And he told me no. Because if, for example, an NGO has a commercial component, then they don't give them tax exemption. For example, Salvation Army, it's an NGO, but they make money. So that's number one to think about to reform our tax exemptions. Number two is I hear a number of candidates that if we develop the airport, if we develop our liquid waste treatment plant, it will cost more. It will add to our tax bill. But it should not be the case because there are some funding available from the province and federal government to develop these kinds of projects. For example, there is Green Municipality Fund. There is the gas tax funding. And now the CBT in 2 years will add $30 million in their profit. So why don't the CAO make a proposal to those funding donors to pay for the development of the airport, of the liquid waste plant, etc.
Thanks.
Linda, I'm just across the street from you, and I didn't notice that you said yours went up $500.
Yeah, 25%.
25%. Yeah. Okay. Well, as far as it goes, I was going to say what Mela did about the tax exempt. There's a lot of properties in town that are receiving a tax exemption, and she said it works out actually for about $42 per person living in Kaslo, whereas Nelson is not so generous, and it works out to about $3.20 a person. So I think there's other avenues in Kaslo, things to be looking at, like some of the very reasonable leases we have going to some of the organizations, the exempted properties, and finding other sources of money. But I think the whole tax system, by the sounds of it, needs to be reviewed here.
Really quickly, there's a lot of folks referring to an email up here referencing Nelson's having tax exemptions of $32,000. That's not correct. It's $88,000. I called down there and I got the bylaw. They've got a 10-year tax exemption bylaw. Some of the properties are 100% tax exempt. Some are 50% tax exempt. And all the churches are statutorily exempted. So those numbers are included in there too. There's not anything you can do about that. And that's not to say that the main drift of that email was how much more per capita was it. That is true. It's an extreme number, but some of the facts are just not straight. So it'd be nice to get those people to get those facts straight. As far as funding these things, your taxes are based on your services. Kaslo was rated last year, or 2013, as a municipality with the lowest taxes in, Greg, you know this, in the country or in BC. It was very low. BC. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not. So our taxes compared to other jurisdictions are low, and that's not an excuse to raise anything.
We'll have a conversation.
Yeah, okay. Sure, yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. So the issue comes around with what you get for your tax dollar. Our previous councils opted to purchase buildings. They purchased a large piece of infrastructure. They've got an old building. They've got 2 municipal buildings now that are well over 100 years old. They're not going to be cheap to maintain. They're not going to get any cheaper to maintain. And you've got these other assets in the community. You're trying to do liquidation. So the prospects of taxes getting lower, I got to say, unless something's done on a major front around the services as you get, it's not very likely. So keeping an eye at budget time, getting people like it makes a big difference when you guys show up and just sit there and witness what's going on when budgets are being set. Because I tell you, there's really, really, really tough decisions that are hard for politicians to make when they know that it's going to hit the pocket of somewhat of residents in the pocket. And that's basically the only way we're going to cut taxes, by cutting services. And they're really, really tough decisions. So if there's a mandate, if the community comes forward, steps forward, participates in these processes, and assists your representatives with deciding who you're going to cut, it makes it way easier for the politicians, because it's damn hard for politicians to do that without having good feedback from the public.
I've got a lot of learning to do about this. It's a learning curve, so I'm really not going to speak to it. Thank you.
Hey, so I'd love to stand up on my chair and say, as councillor, we're going to cut the taxes, and but really, what's realistic and what's not? I heard Greg talk down there and say, I wanted to do a feasibility of some properties. And what I see him referring to is our assets as a community. And as councillor, my background is business. And right now I'm on this path to try and find ways to make things more efficient. Whether it's a more efficient public works department, a more efficient administration department, whatever that may be that can save our community money, and then look even beyond that to, are we using our campground to the fullest potential? Are we using the Kaslo Bay to its fullest potential to make money? The only way that I can really see taxes going down is if the actual revenue of the city or of the village increases. I know it's kind of a funny vision to say, yes, we could lower taxes, but I've seen examples of municipalities do that, find their resources, which we have probably the most abundant resources of any municipality I've ever seen. So, I mean, I like to keep this, hope that in the future, yes, with the proper council, making good decisions, with a focus on moving forward and not focusing on the past and not focusing, but what do we have here that can work for us to make more money come into the city that's not tax dollars. I think there are solutions that lie in there, and as a councillor, that would be my focus. How are we going to provide more abundance to this community? Because as a young person wanting to live here, buy a house here, thinking about buying a building downtown, I'm going to have to pay these crazy taxes, and it's not that easy. And so I agree with you that, yeah, this hike sucks, but I believe that there are ways to at least level it, if not, in my dream world, bring them down. If the Kaslo, this corporation, I believe Kaslo is a corporation, like most municipalities, can make more money from outside dollars. Thank you.
Yeah, Linda, I don't know if there's any silver bullet for this question, but we are a creative community. Maybe things like microhydro, maybe that's something like Nelson did, maybe that does do just what Dustin said, raise our revenue as a village. There's no reason why taxes can't go down if that's true. And I agree with Linda, the taxes do need to be looked at. I think they should be looked at regularly. Who's paying what, who's exempt on what. That makes sense to me.
This is a true story. I swear to God it's a true story. I had a lady come up to me today at curling. I curl with the seniors on Tuesday afternoons. She's about 75 years old. She's lived here for I don't know how many years, 25, 30 years. She says, Rob, you got to do something about my taxes. I said, really, Marge? What's the problem? Tell me what the problem is. They're just too damn low. She says, I only pay $100 a year in taxes on my property. So what's that all about? I really feel like I should be paying more. And I was flabbergasted, you know, like you just don't hear that being on council. But the point is, the increasing revenue streams definitely has some potential. But the way the village is structured, most of the services we provide are based on user fees, whether it's garbage, water, sewer, whatever. So that's not likely going to change. Again, the new fire hall is going to be a bit of a hit this year, but if you chart what's happened to our tax rates in this community over the last 4 or 5 years, I know mine haven't moved. So I may see a bump next year, but that's, you know, sooner or later inflation is going to take its toll. You can't just keep spending less and less every year.
Are you saying I've been singled out for a tax increase? And are you saying, where is this $100 tax?
Well, it's a true story. I'm not making up the numbers. That's what she said to me. And I'm willing to sit down with anybody and look at their taxes if they're willing to share that information and see where they are in the community and what they're getting and what maybe there's something in the zoning that would possibly give them some relief. I think the concept of these tax exempt properties is a red herring. Most of the tax exempt properties in Kaslo are churches, so I don't think you really want to go after churches. The other ones, some of the significant ones, are the arena and the golf course. Now the arena, you pay taxes into the arena to keep the operation functioning. You don't pay any of your tax dollars, does not go to the golf course to make it function. In fact, the opposite is true. The golf course pays a lease to the village, which is equivalent, almost equivalent to what they would pay normally if the golf course owned the land they're on. They don't. The village owns it. So it's a red herring. That, you know, to say that there's money to be made by clawing back these tax exempt properties, it makes no sense. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for now and let John take it.
Well, mine's going to be quick. There's a lot of great ideas here at the table to come up with ideas to either reduce our taxes or just even to maintain them. But I also believe that, you know, because there are a lot of intelligent people here, the collaborative process is the one that's going to work. We have people that have a lot of good ideas. Some people have really good strengths. And I think by bringing it all together, we can solve this issue.
Okay, I'm going to arbitrarily say that I've told two folks, Jeremy and then Annie, that they can ask questions, and then with your indulgence, I'm going to close the formal meeting. It's already after 10 o'clock. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to flag. So Jeremy, please. And I'm sure that some of these candidates would be just delighted to hang around if you'd like to informally come up and engage them before they leave.
Thanks, Wendy. You got my name. And I've been a resident here for around 12 years. These two topics are new to me, but they've probably come up before for you guys. And resident in Kaslo proper for about 10 years. Recently moved to a rental about a couple hundred yards outside of Kaslo, beyond the line called Brennan Street. I'm told I live in the Allen subdivision, and I'm no longer on the voters list. I can't vote for this election. And I'm a business owner for 3 years in Kaslo proper. Consider myself a resident of Kaslo and a business owner and a contributor. Does it not make sense to annex things like the Allen subdivision to the tax base and the voting capacity? And should not, and I was told by the CAO of Kaslo that a resident of, say, Port McNeil in Vancouver Island, who's a property owner here but resides there, could run for mayor in Kaslo. But I can't, excuse me, but I can't vote. And does it not make sense for members of the community who are that close to the community, who are business owners, should they not be able to vote in an election like this?
So Jeremy, I heard two questions. Number one, does anyone running for office here think annexing the Allen subdivision is a good idea? Just yes or no would be cool. And then secondly, why can't someone who owns a business in Kaslo but may not be resident in Kaslo vote? Correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
You still own a lot of town.
I don't own my property.
Okay, so let's start down here. Amy? Okay. Well, let's start down here.
Hi, Jeremy. The first question about annexing the Allen subdivision, when I first started talking to a variety of people about a year ago about running for this position that live in that area, they were explicitly clear they did not want to be annexed into the village. The most important thing about making big decisions about that is talking to everybody in the area that would be affected. So it would require that, and the number one reason why they indicated that was that they didn't want to see the tax increases that they would get in the village because there are more services. Taxes equate services. We have less services on the other side of the road. So the homeowners there that have spoken to me have indicated they're not interested, but that's not everybody, and that's what it would require, because you'd have to talk to all of them. The second aspect about actually being able to vote in both areas, I think is extremely valid. It's not something that your local government can change. That's probably something in the Local Government Act / Community Charter that would determine that, but we can be your advocates for it, and I would totally agree with it.
I have talked to people in the Allen subdivision who would be happy to be part of the village, and people in the Allen subdivision often say, I mean, they think they're part of the village, but they're not paying their taxes there. So, and I'm not sure that everybody has to agree with an annexation anyway. Maybe it's a hostile takeover.
It would just become a referendum issue, and taxation would become part of the question. And there are subsidies available from the province of BC to fund and assistant takeovers. But again, do your due diligence, look at the cost. It may likely be that the cost to Kaslo will go down and the cost to the Allen addition will go up.
I agree with Pat on this in the sense that we need a collaborative project that allows the issues to be carefully examined and the costs put together. We already supply the Allen subdivision with water. Now that was an interesting exercise, and they needed water. We had water. They added more money to the pot to get the extra capacity in the plant. So there's an example of working together. But I was told once by a member up there, don't even think about annexing the Allen subdivision. But maybe it is time to think about it.
Well, the roads are all paved, and the water, so it would just be plowing and garbage pickup. pursuing annexation if the people of the Allen Addition wanted that. And another interesting fact for you, Jeremy, is you're a business owner who lives outside of Kaslo, but there are business owners in Kaslo who cannot vote, and those are corporations. People who own corporations and own property in the municipality, or any municipality, are not allowed to vote.
So just a quick clarificational question. I'm curious, why does the Allen subdivision even exist as a distinct geopolitical unit? What the hell happened there? Historically. Yeah, I know. Is it a cool story or is it boring? If it's boring, forget it. But, pardon me? No, I understand, but it's surrounded by the municipality. Was it always on the edge of reality there? Or? Well, it's adjacent too. It just seems like an unusually built environment, extremely adjacent to the road. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to get in the way of your...
When Kaslo was being formed, we staked out the land, and the Allen Addition was staked out later. It's just a preemption of land.
Okay, thanks. Ramon, anything to say on that?
I want to say something on that.
The mic. Stand down here, folks. Sorry.
That's all it is. Okay. I have something to say on that. Jeremy, where are you? Yeah, I understand your frustration because for years I had my two businesses. I was the treasurer of the chamber, president of the hospital auxiliary, on the hospital board before the amalgamation. And then when I ran for council, which I'll tell you in a moment, everybody says, oh, you're an outsider, you're not a villager, you know, which annoyed me. I can't tell you how it annoyed me, especially when the April 2001 by-election came along. And you probably heard Mayor Lay say he was defeated by one vote. Well, guess what? My husband and I weren't able to vote because we weren't villagers. Otherwise, I might be sitting over there right now. So I do understand your frustration.
True story. Just within the week, we were at a going away party with some friends. They were leaving, and some were staying, but anyway, it was a mix. And three of the couples that were there were from the Allen subdivision, and they were saying that they would like to be annexed. We were shocked. I've never heard it before. They said that they want to be considered Kaslo, and they're willing to. They said they were willing to have a tax increase. That was a very interesting conversation, one I've never heard before, and maybe there's some movement here. I mean, it really is quite, I find it quite silly to have one side of the street Kaslo and the other side of the street in another province, so to speak. It really is strange, and I think it's a natural progression for annexation to happen, and I think it would be a good thing.
Feeling tough? Go around your neighborhood and see how many signatures you can get wanting to join the village of Kaslo and bring that to the council, because the municipality has the power to initiate something like that. But I don't. It'd be at this point, my perception would be a hostile takeover and not something necessarily good for the community that already seems to rally around specific issues. Now it would probably be like a barn burner. But I mean, at the same time, you never know. Go talk with neighbors, get some realistic ideas of what it would actually mean. If there's serious interest by a group in Allen Division, what they want to do is they want to talk to their area director and they want to talk to the CAO here. Some numbers can be crunched. They can produce a couple of reports, pick a few selected properties to show the impact, tax impact, list off the services that they would gain, and people would have an educated, informed decision about whether that would be good for them or not. That would be a good thing. As far as boundaries. I mean, boundaries cut all over the place. The same thing happens on J Avenue up on the back where there's people that on one side of the road. I mean, that's kind of, that goes with boundaries. You draw the line somewhere, road
personally, I was just saying, as an aside over here, I've lived in 2 different places in the world where the area where I lived was annexed, and there's no question in both cases the majority of folks, including me, were not in favor. Tough luck.
I agree with Jim's attitude of basically polling everyone there. Maybe you want to see if your neighbors want to do it before it turns into a great big battle, as it probably will. And I was just informed that in order for it to happen, there'd have to be a referendum in the municipality as well. So that could be another hurdle for sure. Or I'm sorry, you're in your position.
Yeah, Jeremy, I'd love to have you vote for me. I agree with these guys, with Jim, like, make our village a beautiful place that people want to be a part of. I'm not sure what the politics are, I don't know the background history behind this, but I think that it's where it starts, is being in that community and letting them see the benefits to being part of what we're creating and doing here, and then bringing that tax base into ourselves, and so we can all vote and grow together.
Yeah, personally, I agree with you, Jeremy. I think it'd be great if you could vote. It makes sense. Annex property, the subdivision grade one on Annex Mirror Lake, Pine Ridge, all that. I mean, you know, it definitely costs them money and hookups and water and all that. But hey, the land value might go up too. I don't know.
Yeah, I was a big proponent of bringing the Allen subdivision in back in the day when we were building the water treatment plant. It didn't happen then, and I'm not so sure it's going to happen now. There's no real carrot in front of the donkey that I can see, but I think it would be benefit to the village of Kaslo, but I just don't see it happening.
I think it would be a benefit too, based on a collaborative cost-benefit study.
Okay, thanks very much. Oh, we have, okay, keep it brief,
I will
please.
keep it brief. I just want to point out, if your point is that you want to vote, annexing isn't the right way to do that. We can look at getting votes in from both sides. I think that's a really valid thing. Annexing is a whole other issue that does need to go through the appropriate channels, but that's not how you get to vote. I think we can approach that from a different perspective.
No, I just learned about it through the issue. Yeah.
But just to clarify, we don't have to annex to get vote in.
Okay, final question of the evening goes to the young lady right here, Annie.
It's going to be very brief.
Excellent.
And very personal and very small. You're talking about big, big things. But I lived in Abbey Manor about a year ago. And do you know that during the winter, when the snows came last winter, the snowplow on the first day it'll come out, it stops a block short of Abbey Manor. Every time. It'll come 2 days later, but by then the ice is set and it's hidden. And we've had one tenant fall and break her hip. And do you know what that is for someone of our age to fall and break their hip? It is terrible. I mean, she had to relocate her dog. She was gone for a while. She's just now walking. Okay, and all the expenses. But really, if you guys get elected, would you please ask the snowplow on the same day that they plow the commercial front street, to just come 1.5 blocks longer, just to Abbey Manor? We have 10 units. It really wouldn't, I don't think it would cost that much. But not 2 days later after the ice is set. And
Okay, I'd like to just see a simple show of hands from everyone running for council or mayor in favor of plowing all the way to Abbey Manor. Mission accomplished. Aren't you glad you stayed until the end?
Oh, but there aren't. They're not even in favor of it.
Yes, they are.
Oh, I didn't see
They all voted yes. Those were yes hands, right, guys? Yeah, you voted yes, right? Even passed, no due diligence, but still. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You actually don't have to wait for the new council, because this council can do that right now.
It's not slow.
It's not.
Oh, what a perfect way to end an evening of lively, in-your-face democracy. Folks, thank you so much for coming. On behalf of the Council, always visit J.D. Humphries School. Don't forget to vote on November 15th.